Hey guys, Rick Stone here from Our Stony Acres. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hey, today we are going to be talking to you about seedlings that you should be planting indoors now in June and July for your fall garden. And I know that seems a little weird, but it's time to actually start thinking about your fall garden. Now, this video is intended for those of you that live in gardening zones 4 through 7 essentially, but ultimately the more important thing is not your garden zone, but your frost date. And we'll talk more about that when we talk about the calculation. But today, essentially, we're going to be getting you ready for your fall garden by telling you what seedlings you need to be starting indoors now. Okay? All right, before we get started, please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that notification bell so you get notice every time I release new videos. Go over and follow us on Instagram as well. It would be awesome if we had you over there. And make sure you stick around. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about our year-round gardening course, and especially our mini course, which, if you're interested here at the beginning, there's a link down in the description below that you can click on to go sign up for the mini course for free. It's a 45-minute course that'll give you a little bit of a taste as to what year-round gardening is all about. And that link is down in the description, and again, it's free. Okay, so why the heck am I talking about fall garden planting in June? It's just barely summer, right? I actually still have fall crops that are in my beds behind me, so why the heck am I talking about it now? And the reason is because depending on when your frost date is, it's actually already time for you to start thinking about getting seedlings planted indoors, okay? And we're going to give you some timing calculations on what, and talk to you about what plants you should be actually putting in now in preparation for that fall garden. Now, one other question that I know I'm going to have is, why am I telling you that you need to be starting these seedlings indoors? It's nice and warm outside. Why shouldn't we be putting them, putting the trays out and starting them outside? The answer to that question is because we are dealing here with cool season crops. So most of what we're going to be talking about today is in the brassica family, and those are definitely cool season crops. And outside right now, our temperatures are in the 80s and 90s and maybe even 100 degrees. Those crops do not like temperatures that hot, and even the little seedlings are going to be triggered to go to seed if we're trying to grow them outside in those hot of temperatures. So we need to be doing this indoors where we can keep the temperatures down, hopefully in the 70s, and that will help them to just grow and do better. So we're going to do them indoors under lights, okay? All right, so let's first talk about timing and how we want to deal with the timing of this planting. The idea here is that we want to get those seedlings planted out in our garden just as the weather starts to turn towards fall. So it's still going to be warm. We're still going to probably have temperatures that are a little bit hotter than maybe we might like, but it's kind of just at that break period, and it happens differently for everybody. For us, we usually start to see relief from the real severe summer temperatures about the middle to the end of August, okay? It'll be a little bit different for each of you, but we're targeting that time zone where things start to break a little bit. We start to see a little bit of relief, and that usually happens somewhere between 4 to 6 weeks before our first frost date, okay? So the most important thing in figuring out when you should be starting these seedlings is knowing that first frost date. So figure out when your first frost date is, and then we're going to start, doing the calculation from there. So the idea is 4 to 6 weeks before that first frost date, we need to be putting those seedlings out. Now, it's going to take us about 6 to 8 weeks to get those seedlings ready to go out. And so we're going to be looking at backing off from that date another 6 to 8 weeks, which means we're looking at a total of about 12 to 14 weeks before our first frost date is when we want to be starting those. And there's some wiggle room here, so it doesn't have to be exact. You've got about a 2-week window that you can work in. But let's actually do the calculation, and let's use my first frost date. So my first frost date is October 1st, which means somewhere between August 15th and September 1st is when we are going to want to be putting these seedlings actually out into the garden, okay? So I need to be backing off another 8 weeks for my starting indoors time frame. So that means somewhere between June 15th and July 1st is when I really want to be starting these plants indoors. And again, quite a bit of wiggle room there, and usually I kind of look more for about the 12-week time frame, so about 12 weeks, but that's because I have a really long, hot fall usually. So July 1st is when I'm going to be starting those seedlings. Now, you just take your frost date and adjust accordingly. So if your frost date is September 15th, you're going to be bumping it for sure into the middle of June. If it is later in October or the 1st of November, then maybe your frost date is going to move in, your planting date is going to move into July, or mid-July, maybe even towards the end of July, when you're going to be starting those seedlings indoors. So again, calculation is 12 to 14 weeks before your first frost date is when we want to be starting these plants indoors. One other thing that I wanted to make sure that you recognize is in the fall, we have the exact opposite conditions of spring. So in the spring, it's cool, getting warmer, sunlight is low, getting longer, the day length is getting longer. In the fall, we have the exact opposite conditions. It's warm, getting cooler, and the sunlight is going from lots of sunlight and day length, and those day lengths are dropping. And so whatever the maturity dates are on your plants, you need to add about 15 extra days for full maturity in the fall, just because we've got that lower sun, cooler weather, and so it takes longer for things to mature in the fall. So keep that in mind as well. All right, so what plants are we actually talking about here that we want to be starting indoors 12 to 14 weeks before our first frost date? Essentially, it's everything in the brassica family. So we're talking here about things like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, kohlrabi, Brussels sprouts, kale, collards, and even things like the Asian greens like bok choy and tatsoi as well. We are going to be looking at getting all of those planted 12 to 14 weeks before our first frost date. There are a few other things that we can be looking at as well, and those would be mostly herbs that are going to deal with the cooler weather of fall. So if you wanted to, right now, if you wanted to start some more basil, maybe some parsley, you could even look at things like dill. Sorrel is another one that you could be planting right now. Cilantro is a cool season crop that you would probably want to hold off. I would maybe cut the time frame down to maybe 8 to 10 weeks on that one. But all of those as well can be planted. So that gives you a pretty good list. I've done a written list down below if you want to copy and paste those, so you can take a look at that as well. So again, all of this stuff, it seems like, why the heck are we talking about it in the heat of June and July? But now is the time to actually be thinking about that so that we get the timing right and we have those plants ready so that they have plenty of time to mature before the sunlight goes away and the really cold weather starts to arrive in the fall. So get them started now, okay? All right, that's all I have for you, but I would like to take just a minute to talk to you about my year-round gardening course. So we've got a lot of fun stuff coming up. We have the year-round gardening master course, which usually launches every year the first week of July, usually somewhere between about the 5th to the 15th is when we're launching that course, and that'll be coming up again this year. But to give you a little bit of an idea of what that course is about and kind of wet your whistle a little bit on the year-round gardening concept, I wanted to have you go and enroll in our free year-round gardening mini course. Now this is about a 45-minute course. I cover 3 really important topics that you need to know about planting a year-round garden. We're focusing there on fall and winter gardens, and this is a great, fun, free course. Link down in the description that you can go click on to join that course. And if you join that course, you actually get a little bit of a discount on the master course when it comes along later. So again, free course. Link is down in the description. Go click on that. All right, that's all I have for you for this week, guys. Thank you for sticking with us till the end. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the notification bell so you get notice every time I release new videos. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. I will make sure to get those answered. Also, make sure you go over and follow us on Instagram. We'd love to have you join us there as well. Okay, that's all I have for you for this week. Thanks, guys. Happy gardening.